Okay, let's finish up our playthrough of the Battle of Bloody Ridge scenario from Henderson Field, The Struggle for Guadalcanal, which is part of the campaign for Guadalcanal 2-pack. We have 4 turns remaining. We're starting on the October 2nd, 1942 turn. The US receives 2 aircraft squadrons. Let's resolve US movement. Here we are after US movement. So we vacated a couple of the inner entrenchments that were over by Henderson Field and built 2 new ones out here instead behind Ila River. One in the jungle using our combat engineers and one here in clear terrain. We spread out our SPs and pulled our tank battalion back into Tanaru. So now we're just holding back and waiting to see where the Japanese will attack next. We're not in position to be able to conduct any artillery bombardments. And I think we want to save those to use defensively during the Japanese turn anyway. So with that, we're going to go ahead and resolve the Japanese half of the turn after we remove the disrupted marker from this tank. Now it's the Japanese reinforcement phase. The Japanese receive 3 reinforcement units. This 5-strength infantry battalion, a 3-strength ship engineer regiment, and a 2-strength artillery regiment. I think I'll have them land over here by Tanaru. So let's go ahead and resolve Japanese movement. Here we are after Japanese movement. We're getting ready to conduct 1 attack. It'll be against the units in this hex, entrenched in the jungle, which I've chosen because I think the Japanese player is aware that one of the 2 defending units is a 3-strength engineer battalion, since there was no entrenchment there at the beginning of the turn. And if we're paying attention during US movement, we should also know that the other unit is a 7th-strength infantry battalion. So with that in mind, I'm not going all in terms of combat strength. And I'm instead aiming for the 1-to-1, taking into account that the US is likely to commit their maximum of 3 artillery units in ground support, and a 2-to-1 would be very difficult at that point, and also leave us in clear terrain, possibly, and I like the option of being able to retreat these 2 stacks into the jungle if necessary, but if we roll really low and are able to get the US to retreat, then we would be able to advance the stack, leaving us in a good position for a concentric attack against the units there. We'll see. That's wishful thinking. That would leave this stack pretty vulnerable. And that's why I've left the combat engineers there. They're entrenched and concealed, and brought in the 5-strength infantry unit there as well to join them. 2-strength artillery units concealed in this hex. It has a range of 14. I have 2 3-strength artillery units stacked and concealed in this ridge hex. I've brought forward 2 7th-strength units in preparation for this. And I've moved this stack across the rivers for easier access over here. We have a ton of reinforcements arriving for the next couple of turns, and I'm not sure if we're going to go this way or this way. We'll see what happens, but I'd like to be able to have better access over there, especially since all these perimeter hexes are from here to here, 2-unit stacks, except for the very edges. And what else? I think I brought a couple of full-strength infantry units, a 5 and a 4 here. They're concealed, and we have 2 very weak units, 1-strength reduced units stacked there across the river. So we'll see what happens. Let's resolve combat. And here we are after combat, before applying the results. So we revealed our attacking units. We had a total combat strength of 8 from this hex, 5 plus 3, and from this hex 7 plus 2 for 9, and then we declared offensive support with the 2 artillery units in this ridge hex, both 3s. So our total combat strength as the attacker is 23. They're defending with 3 plus 7 +2 for the entrenchment at 12, and there's no need to declare defensive ground support since the maximum is 3 artillery units, and the most they can do is a +11. It would still be 1-to-1. So we rolled a 2 and got pretty lucky as the Japanese. The result is a 1/2 with an asterisk next to the 2 on the 1-to-1, which means that there's a mandatory step loss on the defenders. So we'll apply the first one to the engineer unit, and they'll decide to hold their ground and flip their Marine battalion as well. And we apply 1 loss to our Japanese units, and they'll retreat a hex. So that ends the Japanese player turn. These fired markers are removed. There were no aircraft involved in this attack since from this hex 3609 we had the anti-aircraft unit, and the entrenchment brought the defender's highest proficiency from a 4 to a 5, equal to the Japanese highest proficiency. So there were no die roll modifiers. And with that, let's go ahead and resolve attrition. Here we are after the attrition roll. We rolled a 2 for the US player, 3 for the Japanese, and it's October now, so it's more likely that we'll be seeing losses from attrition than we did in September, and as usual, it's a little bit more likely that the Japanese will suffer losses than the Americans. But in this case, both players must lose a step. So we will, let's see, apply our loss to one of the 2 reduced construction units as the Japanese player, and this unit is eliminated. And as the Americans, we will apply it to the LVTs, which are eliminated. Okay, so that ends the October 2nd turn. Now we enter the October 5th turn, and the US player still receives 2 aircraft markers, no reinforcements. Let's resolve US movement. Here we are after Japanese movement. And by the way, this game gives me so much AP. I don't know what it is, but it's taking me forever. I'm enjoying myself though. Just taking a lot of breaks. A lot of long breaks. Playing other stuff in between, which doesn't help. Anyway, what have we done? We're getting ready to resolve Japanese combat. And it's turn 7 of 9 in the scenario, so time is ticking, and it feels like we still have a long ways to go towards obtaining our victory condition at the rate we're going, of taking back at least one of the 3 Henderson field hexes and holding on to it through the end of the scenario. At least it doesn't look like we've made much progress. So the plan is, well, what I've done over here is advanced a couple of stacks in hopes of, during our next movement phase, to be able to infiltrate the US perimeter by expending our entire movement allowance to move from one enemy zone of control directly into another with no risk of becoming fatigued, which only the Japanese infantry units can do. Infantry only, I think. Anyway, those are both infantry only stacks, so we won't be conducting any combat there, this turn at least. It is at the risk of becoming disrupted during the next turn, during the US half of the turn, but that forces the US player to have to fire their artillery units, so that may open up opportunities elsewhere, on this side maybe. And it's better to risk becoming disrupted than have to suffer more losses in direct combat. I've moved our weak unit over here. It's concealed on this ridge across the river, mainly to maybe bait some of these units or to protect that stack from a concentric. And we have our artillery units all concealed back here within range of all the action. We have moved the engineers over. They're entrenched now here. A couple of other units, they're concealed. I have the 2 anti-tank units here, the stronger one over here. I have the anti-aircraft unit in this hex, and from this direction, in order to try to distract from the sneakiness over there, we're going to be conducting a banzai attack, which means it's likely that things are going to get pretty messy over on this side pretty quickly, especially for the Japanese player, unless we get lucky. We're hoping for a 4-1 after all is said and done, and we'll see how it goes. I haven't quite decided what to do with this stack. It's a pretty strong stack of 2 7s. Probably can make better use of them, but just I'm hoping to be able to get a concentric here, or maybe start pushing in that direction. Maybe not on this turn, maybe the next. We might even go all out there. We're just trying to get closer to Henderson Field. We'd like to be within a mile of the field, a couple hexes on our next turn. So let's see how things turn out. Alright, so this mess is me resolving combat. We revealed our attacking units. There were 3 stacks, 1, 2, 3. So we had a combat strength of 10 from this hex, 8, and 12. We declared offensive ground support. We can declare a maximum of 2 artillery units as a Japanese player, so we have a 5 strength unit, a 3 strength unit within range. So that brought our total to 38. Then we revealed the defending units, reduced engineer unit and 7th strength infantry unit, Marine battalion, and they're entrenched. Their total defensive strength is 8 plus 2 is just 10. They declared defensive ground support, and I didn't do this before, but I should just go ahead and go all in here, even if you don't need it for an odds break, just in case the Japanese declare a banzai attack, which happens after ground support is committed. So we're going all in with a 5 strength from the coast and 2 3 strength units for a plus 11, bringing their total defensive strength to a 21. Their proficiency rating is modified from 4 to 5, so there's no modifier for that. Our highest is 5 as well. So that brings us temporarily to, 38 to 21, 1 to 1. We're declaring banzai, and that doubles all of our Japanese infantry unit combat strengths. So from 38 we go all the way up to 68, which to 21 is 3 to 1. No modifiers, and we rolled a 3 on the 3 to 1, which is a 0/2 with an asterisk next to the 2. Because it's a banzai attack, we add 2 losses, which must be taken as step reductions to the attacker. But we'll resolve the defender's losses first. There's 1 mandatory step reduction, and that has to be to his full strength unit. And for their second, they can choose to retreat a hex, or eliminate one of these 2 units. It's a tough choice because that's an engineer battalion that we would lose, or a 3 strength Marine battalion. But if we choose to retreat, then we're losing the entrenchment. So I think let me think about this. I'm totally stuck, so I'm gonna roll to decide what to do. And the dice tell me to eliminate this 1 strength reduced engineer battalion and hold our ground here. We apply 2 losses. I'll flip this for the first ship engineer regiment, and we'll flip this for the second. Here's our attrition roll. It's a no for both. We remove the fired markers and proceed to the next turn, October 9th. The US player receives no reinforcements, 2 aircraft markers, which are still out there, and we resolve US movement. Here we are after the US movement phase. We've deepened our defenses here in the clear around Fighter 1. 2 of our 3 tank companies occupy the strip. The third one's here in the entrenchment, joined by 2 infantry units for a combined stack. Full strength Marine Battalion occupies the jungle by the river. And in this jungle hex we have a full strength construction battalion that we brought from this now vacant ridge hex. The second unit from that hex moved over to join 7th Strength Marine Battalion entrenched on the edge. We have a continuous zone of control on the coast behind us. We built an entrenchment on Henderson Field. We have special weapons on the field to do the same with our now available entrenchment. On the next turn, we bolstered this hex by bringing in another unit, and will not be conducting any combat or artillery bombardments this turn, and instead we'll save our artillery to use defensively during the Japanese half of the turn. That ends the US player turn. We enter the Japanese reinforcement phase. They receive 6 units, a 2-strength transportation regiment, non-infantry, a 4-strength Japanese Marine Battalion, anti-tank, anti-aircraft units, and 2 4-strength artillery units. Let's enter the Japanese movement phase. Here we are after Japanese movement. We've advanced our units forward here as well, and are getting ready to make one attack. It'll be against Tank Company B defending this Fighter 1 hex. We're attacking with 2 5-strength infantry battalions. We'll be declaring offensive support with our 5-strength and 4-strength artillery units, both within range, for a total of 19. They're defending with 3. They'll go all in with defensive ground support and use their aircraft. So that brings them to 14, plus 1 die roll modifier for the aircraft, another +1 for defending an installation hex for +2 die roll modifier. We'll declare a banzai attack, bringing us to 29 to 14, 2 to 1, +2 die roll modifier. Not very good at all, but we'll see what happens. Oh, we roll a 6, +2 is an 8, 3/0 with an asterisk next to the 3. 3 mandatory step reductions, eliminates unit. And we have 2 left. 1, 2. This aircraft is spent. It's the end of the turn, so we'll remove the other one. I'll remove the fired markers too. And resolve attrition. We roll a 1 for the US, a 6 for the Japanese. That's a yes for the US. And we'll grab this reduced Pioneer Battalion. So that ends the turn, and now we enter the final turn, October 12th. The US receives 3 reinforcements, but no more aircraft. 3 5-strength infantry battalions. US movement. Here's the end of the US movement phase of the October 12th turn, and I do believe that this will end the playthrough, as there's no way the Japanese have a chance to take back a Henderson Field hex at this point, with the 3-strength defense battalion now in that jungle hex blocking them from being able to move adjacent to Henderson Field. So even though they have the naval bombardment with the +2 die roll modifier in the last turn, it will do no good. So it ends in a US victory. Thanks for watching. Good night.